What if the very things we think we want in a partner, experience, maturity, a life that's already been lived, actually come with some hidden costs? We're about to break down a pretty controversial take on modern romance that you are definitely going to want to hear.
So we are jumping right in with a provocative question. Why should men avoid mature women? Okay, before we go any further, let's get something straight. When this viewpoint uses the word mature, it's not really about age. It's about having extensive relationship experience. And look, this isn't about judging anyone. It's about understanding a very specific and often debated perspective. My job here is just to lay out the argument so you can see if it clicks with any of your own experiences.
All right, so where does this whole idea even start? Well, it all begins by looking back, exploring how a partner's romantic history can cast a really long shadow over a new relationship.
According to this viewpoint, the past presents three major hurdles. First, navigating a long dating history. Second, dealing with the emotional baggage that comes from past breakups. And third, that constant, unspoken pressure of being compared to people who came before you.
The core idea here is that a long dating history means you're not starting with a blank canvas. You're stepping into a story that's already in progress, and it comes complete with established patterns and habits that were formed way before you ever showed up. And those past relationships, they often leave stuff behind, emotional baggage. Past heartbreaks can create these defensive behaviors, and the argument here is that a new partner can end up feeling the weight of all that. Sometimes feeling pressured to heal wounds they had absolutely nothing to do with.
And finally, there's the whole issue of comparisons. Even if it's never said out loud, there can be this lingering feeling that you're being measured against the memory of an ex. And that can create a sense of competition that's just draining and honestly pretty unfair. Okay, so that's the past. But how does all that stuff actually affect things right now, in the present? Well, this perspective argues that these factors from the past directly shape the day-to-day dynamics of the relationship.
This section is all about 4 specific challenges in the now, dealing with habits that are firmly set, a more cautious or guarded approach to love, emotional walls that are built up from past hurts, and interactions that can sometimes feel more strategic than spontaneous.
First up, let's talk about fixed habits. When someone has their life really set in stone, their routines, their beliefs, their way of doing things, it can make compromise a real challenge. From this perspective, it can start to feel like you're the only one who's bending. And this leads to something described as guarded love. The idea is that with more experience, the priority just shifts. That fiery passion you might find in earlier relationships gets replaced by a desire for security and caution, which can make the connection feel a lot more controlled and way less spontaneous. Building right on top of that, we have emotional walls. Past hurt can act like a suit of armor, making it a really slow and deliberate process to build genuine trust and vulnerability. You might find yourself having to work much harder to get to that feeling of closeness.
And finally, strategic interactions. The argument here is that a ton of relationship experience can turn conversations into a game of chess, where every move feels calculated. And when emotions get mixed up with strategy, it can create a real power imbalance in the relationship.
So we've covered the past and the present, but what about the future, right? The final piece of this whole argument focuses on the unique pressures that can come along with planning for tomorrow.
This perspective highlights 3 key pressures that are all about the future: a sense of urgency around timing, certain financial expectations, and something it calls a temporary mindset.
First, timing pressure. As people get older, goals like maybe starting a family or settling down for good can start to feel way more urgent. This can create a rushed feeling, It leaves less time for the relationship to just grow at its own natural pace.
Then there's the money angle, which this perspective presents as a kind of double-edged sword. If she earns a lot, you might feel pressure to match her lifestyle. If she earns less, there could be an expectation for you to provide financial support. Either way, money can become a major topic really early on.
And the final point here is about a short-term mindset. It's that feeling that even though things are good right now, the future is still kind of up in the air. This can leave you feeling like you're just a chapter in her story, not the final page.
So after considering all these potential challenges from the past, the present, and the future, what's the takeaway here? The argument really boils down to one core message. You've got to look beyond that initial spark.
The key to navigating all of this, according to this perspective, is one simple word: alignment. It's that moment when your personal pace, your life goals, and your vision for the future truly sync up with your partner's.
And that's really the ultimate takeaway. The advice here is to prioritize that deep alignment over simple, fleeting attraction. The argument is that this choice is what's going to save you time, energy, and a whole lot of potential heartache in the long run.
So what do you think? Does this perspective ring true for you, or do you see things completely differently? Drop your experiences and opinions in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to hear what you have to say. And if you want more content that really makes you think about love and relationships, make sure you subscribe to Psychology of Love. Thanks for tuning in.